and 3 continued, and at the conclusion of it, the gigantic headline continues to be that man right there is still available. Shedeur Sanders, who had a prolific 24 season, all-time FBS record, completion percentage of nearly 72%, threw for 4,000 yards and 37 touchdowns. He is going to be a third-day player still waiting to be drafted. Joined now on the program by Field Yates. Field, you and I visited after round 1, and Shedeur Sanders had not been selected yet. I did not envision any scenario where I'd be visiting with you here on Friday night after rounds 2 and 3, with that still being the same situation and him being available come Saturday morning. That is where we are. What theories are there among the folks you talk to as to why that is the case?
Yeah, Scott, I am stunned. I thought last night when I mentioned the possibility of Shedeur Sanders maybe not being drafted in the second round, that even perhaps I would look silly a day later and he would hear his name called within the first 5 or 6 selections tonight. So let's talk about how the quarterbacks are evaluated during this pre-draft process. Because I'll tell you this, on the field, Shedeur Sanders is a day 1 or day 2 selection. He was the only quarterback in the entire FBS last season who, when he was not under pressure, completed at least 80% of his passes. This is a 4-year starter who took 2 separate programs to unprecedented heights, extremely experienced, throws with great touch and accuracy, helped elevate the profile of other wide receivers beyond just Travis Hunter. It only leads me to believe that teams maybe are less comfortable with some of the stuff that comes into the intangibles department for Shedeur Sanders. And frankly, I'm not sure that's justified. Scott, I understand that Deion Sanders, and there's a lot of attention being paid to him being the son of one of the most notable athletes that we have seen in the history of professional sports. But frankly, I'm stunned. I don't have a good explanation for why Shedeur Sanders has not heard his name called. I had him as the 16th rated player on my board. I haven't been doing this nearly as long as Mel Kiper, but I can't imagine there have been too many instances where the 16th rated player on a big board is still available on day 3 or going into day 3. I am truly perplexed by why this situation has gotten to the point that we are now in.
Field, appreciate the perspective, particularly as it relates to the big question mark we have. We'll get an answer presumably Saturday as the draft continues, and we wait to see where Shedeur Sanders will land. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. Appreciate you. Best thing I saw today, the Titans used to be the Oilers, which means nobody can wear number 1 because Warren Moon wore that number. A surprise for Cam Ward. The guy that wore number 1 said, you can wear number 1 now as well. Here's Ward and Moon on adding to the legacy of number 1 for this franchise.
Before I called him, I made sure I watched his highlights to make sure he was legit. And so he was legit, you know.
I'm excited to see what he's going to do with his legacy wearing this number. And I'm proud of the things that I did to establish my legacy with the time I wore that number.
That means a lot, especially for, you know, what he did back in the Oilers. But, you know, I don't think no number 1's made plays for, you know, Tennessee. You know, I plan on being the first one, not the last one to do it. But, you know, I'm honored.
We were laughing at our show meeting. This young man didn't see Warren Moon, but if you put on the tape, he's going to say, damn, that man can throw the football. Very cool storyline. Speaking of, a couple storylines from the first couple of rounds. 9 defensive tackles taken in the first 2 rounds. We knew that was coming. That's tied for the second most in the common draft era, dating back to 1967. Only year with more 1970. There were 10 taken before the 3rd round. One of the reasons why Ohio State won it all, an obscene amount of talent. 7 players from the Buckeyes selected in the first 2 rounds, the most of any school this year. It's also tied with the Buckeyes of 2016 through 2 rounds in a single year. All that NIL money paid off in a big way, able to keep those guys around. SEC and Big Ten have 66 of the 102 picks taken thus far, nearly 2/3 of them. Georgia and Texas lead all SEC teams with 6 each. Ohio State led the Big Ten with 7. Quite a bit of success has come out of the 2nd and 3rd rounds of the draft through the years. In fact, 42 gold jackets. We're talking about Hall of Famers, obviously. Some notables include Brett Favre, Michael Strahan, Curtis Martin, and the great Joe Montana. With some thoughts on day 2, here's Mel Kiper Jr.
I really like what the New England Patriots did. You have a franchise quarterback in Drake May. What do? You try to help him out. try to get him to that level as quickly as you can. You need the left tackle, the blind side protector, like Will Campbell. As long as that arm length holds up, he can be a heck of a player in the National Football League. He'll be a key guy, obviously, for Drake May. Then you get a running back, a game breaker, okay? You got Ramondre Stevenson. Now you go get a guy like Travion Henderson, who's a touchdown waiting to happen. Catch the ball effectively out of the backfield, and he will be an outstanding blocker as well. Guess what? He never fumbled his entire career. Then you go and get a Kyle Williams, a dynamic playmaker, wide receiver who was excellent at Washington State. Even when Cam Ward was there, Cam Ward left, and he still had more production. Then you go to Jared Wilson, center, took over for Cedric Van Granger this year, became a really good player, outstanding athlete, runs in a 4.8 at 305 pounds, but he needs more work, needs more experience, but the talent is in abundance. For Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders, all I can say is I think it's disgusting. I don't understand what the heck's going on with this. Fifth player on my board. It's never happened before in 47 years where a player that high has dropped this far into the fourth round at quarterback. That's sitting there in round 4 with other quarterbacks being taken who aren't as good as Shedeur, aren't even close, in my opinion, in terms of accuracy, toughness. Arm strength is certainly more than good enough. I don't see went fourth round. Dak Prescott worked out pretty good for them. It's just that Shedeur was projected a lot higher than they were. That's why we're having this discussion.
That's kind of what I said a little bit earlier in the show. No surprise, Shedeur Sanders is the best available player on Mel's board heading into Saturday. Other notable names still available include another Buckeye from Ohio State who was so impactful in being introduced. And you can't wear number 1 if you play for the Titans/Oilers franchise because Warren Moon wore number 1 and they retired it. So Warren Moon said, here you go, young fella. Here's number 1. You can wear it. Here they both are on adding to the legacy of the number.
Before I called him, I made sure I watched his highlights to make sure he was legit. And so he was legit, you know.
I'm excited to see what he's going to do with his legacy wearing this number. And I'm proud of the things that I did to establish my legacy with the time I wore that number.
That means a lot, especially for, you know, what he did back in the Oilers. But, you know, I don't think no number 1's made plays for, you know, Tennessee. You know, I plan on being the first one, not the last one to do it. But, you know, I'm honored.
We talked about it in the meeting. That young man looked it up and found out, yeah, Warren Moon was legit. For the youngsters that don't know, you could spend a little time and learn that the man on the left that wore number 1, he could spin.
Em phải 45 rồi giờ em mới quay được 22. Nhưng mà quay sáng quay đến 12 rưỡi đấy. Anh nhầm. Từ sáng quay 3 tiếng đến 11 giờ 4 mấy đây. Thì cũng được 22 đấy. 22 nhiêu? Vâng, giờ quay tầm đấy nữa thì cũng tải được rồi. Giờ tôi quay 3 tiếng thế. Lên xong rồi 8 file đúng không? Vâng. Lúc sáng em tải 2 file rồi, thì bây giờ cũng chỉ được 6 file thôi.